Okay, the moment's here. Our next guest is Australian rock royalty who, just like your dad's old ute, just keeps on keeping on.
For more than 30 years, Diesel's been greasing our tanks with rock and roll. Well, and that's just the way we like it. He first tuned up his engine through the 80s with band Johnny Diesel and the Injectors. 1992's Hep Fidelity was his first solo effort, and 15 albums later, he's set to release his greatest hits. What better way to celebrate 3 decades in the beers than filling up the truck with the best Diesel's got and hitting the road for a tour of Oz?
Please welcome Diesel!
Let me start by apologising for someone who is celebrating 30 wonderful years that you had to put up with the panel singing all of your songs during that opening there.
As well, would have loved some guitar busting out too.
Yeah, well, all I neneeded was an invitation back. That's all I needed.
Yeah, that is your invitation.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
well, here we go. It's going to happen.
Anytime.
So 30 years of music whittled down to one album. It must have been really hard to work out what goes on or what gets the...
Yeah, it's a terrible analogy, but it's a bit like when you make the list for like a gathering, a party or something, and then you realise you can't get everyone in, and so you're like...
You're Brisbane on a list of cities.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, you know, there'll be another ones. Well, next time, you know, you start scrapping them out.
More importantly, on the flip side, are there the ones that you're like, I am sick of this song, but if I don't put it on, there will be a lynching?
No, thankfully, I don't have, like, you know, something about Christmas or some annoying song that became a massive hit that you have to play it every time. There's not one song that I begrudge like that, thankfully. And
it's not just the album, of course, you're touring. You're hitting the road, the Give Me Saturday Night tour. I notice you're also doing Thursdays and Friday nights. That's weird. Like, is the audience meant to know his heart's not in it? He really wants Saturday.
Look, my job for 30 years has been making every night a freaking Saturday night. So, you know, that's the thing. And it's the biggest cliche, but, you know, every Saturday night's like a miniature New Year's Eve. That's my theory. Like, people have that expectation, which is ridiculous, but...
Oh, so this is interesting, because I wanted to ask about this. What's the best night? Because I could imagine Friday night could go off. It's Saturday night.
It's a funny thing, you know. Like, there's the Friday night. It's like a champagne cork going pow, you know, and then Saturday can be a bit flatter, actually. It's a little bit like that.
So Give Me Friday Night. It's obvious.
I like going to countries where that Saturday night thing actually means absolutely nothing. It's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
You know,
where's that?
Well, like Southeast Asia, I think, to a large degree. I think every night's potentially Saturday night in Bangkok or Shanghai or something like that. Yeah. It's a real Anglo thing.
Yeah.
And speaking of countries, you're doing a lot of regional dates with this tour too. What's the difference between like a country gig and a city gig, and do you have a favourite?
Well, you know, I think the line's getting really blurred these days. I feel like in the country areas that they're actually... because of the advent of the internet, they're actually way more in tune with what's happening, with me especially. Like when I go and do a signing or something and talk to everybody, they seem to know more about what's happening. There's less clutter out there, so there's not so much, you know, noise in the blogosphere or whatever. So they just seem to be able to hone in on things. So it's not more. It doesn't feel like, oh, we're going out to the country where they don't know anything about what's going on. And it's actually the opposite now.
Hey, have you ever lost it on stage like Knowlesy at a gig?
I did. Well, yeah, there has been a few occasions. But since I've figured out that alcohol and adrenaline are sort of like oil and water, they don't really mix. I tend to not throw so much furniture around anymore like I used to.
It's a good tip.
But yeah, throwing furniture was one of my really good traits here for a while.
Sorry,
and guitars.
What furniture do you have on stage at a rock concert?
No, like this is in the dressing room afterwards.
Or in the hotel.
You hear about rock stars and you hear about that, they trashed a hotel room like a bear in a car. Have you... It does happen?
Well, look, you know, like
Come
I said...
on, you're amongst friends. Everyone's seen the internet, apparently.
All I can say is adrenaline by itself is a very powerful thing. Just ask any sports person. And when you mix it with other things, not so good.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you still find, after all these years, that as someone with a fellow showbiz name, How do you find people prefer to address you more, and what do you like?
Oh, look, you know, I love being called Mark. When people, like, say it out in an audience, like, Mark, you know, I'll instantly reply, like, look and see who it is.
Oh, Mum.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, it's my postman. It's like my butcher.
It's how you know you're in trouble. You get the middle name as well.
Yeah, that's the... Well,
No,
yeah.
you know you're...
Don't even go
What
there.
is your middle name?
Did you know you're in trouble at a gig when someone says Johnny Diesel and the Injectors?
Come to your room.
Where are the injectors? Where are the injectors? No, I get it all, Rove, believe me. But my mum, being Franco-American, you know, that means we liked to eat a lot of hot dogs. But she gave me a French middle name. She said, it's a French middle name. It's Dennis with one N. Which is Denis, right? And that was not really too keen. I wasn't too keen on that until Blondie had that song. Yeah. And then I was like, well, Blondie's, you know, she's pretty cool.
But isn't it amazing, the difference between Denis and Dennis?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I know, it's Dennis the Menace.
Yeah,
That's it. That's all that goes with that.
Yeah, no good.
You came up in an era of great Australian music, great Australian rock bands, such a healthy scene.
Yes.
How's it changed from now to then?
I think it's, you know, it's not as obvious as it was maybe, and, you know, it seems a little bit harder. I see a lot of acts when they're starting out, they're doing it a different way, but they're still doing it, you know. When I started, like, you just have a sniff of a single and the record company would be there to kind of pour some financing into it, what they called tour support. Then they'd be out touring with other bands. That was the way they got out there. And I guess now, you know, they can still do that, but they have to be a lot more autonomous and probably strip it down. I tour with a lot of amazing solo acts that I know would love to have, you know, 6 people on stage, but they can't afford it. But it doesn't mean they're not getting their music out there and getting it going. And everyone's become, in the process, a lot more autonomous.
Yeah, we'll always find a way to do it.
Yeah, and there is technically more music than ever before right now.
Yeah. Well, just quickly, I've got to give you a choice here. You have to make a choice. Because as a guitarist, you're an amazing guitarist, but people often forget that and they think about you as the vocalist and frontman.
Well, that's cool.
If you get to be remembered as a great vocalist or a great guitarist, what do you choose?
Oh, good question, Waleed.
It's what he does.
Oh, you know, that is a bloody hard thing. I'd have to go with guitarist because well, that was, you know, my original, like, fascination. Like, my fascination with singing, that was almost because it was so, like, just omnipresent anyway that I wasn't... The guitar was my first fascination. Then I sort of noticed, oh, yeah, there's people singing as well.
Wow.
With the killer voice, though.
Yeah.
Diesel's new album, Diesel 30 Greatest Hits, is out today. Would you please thank Diesel?